this is Lewis with a short video demonstrating how to debug a Go and Go Exec when logged in remotely through remote support or remote session. One of the things about the Go and the Go Exec interface to the hub is that all of the services, tracking, AIS, mail, use least cost routing, which means that if there's an available internet connection, it'll use that and only transmit over the Go and the Go Exec if there are no other methods to connect to the internet. So that's automatic, and you can't really control that. I mean, you can force the applications to go to the internet directly, which is the default, and you can enable least cost routing, but there's no real mechanism to automatically force all traffic out through the Go. So I'm going to show you some tricks here for forcing traffic to go over the Go and Go Exec for debugging purposes. Although in normal operation you wouldn't need to do this. And so we need to first go over my network configuration here. So here in the office, my situation is that I have a hub in another building that is connected to a Go. That hub is at 192.168.77.199. Now normally when you do this you would be connected to the hub that is directly connected to the Go, but in my situation I can't do that, so I have a hub that's connected to the Go, and then I have a network connection between the Go that we're going to be using for this demonstration purposes at 192.168.77.198 that is connected via the local network here in the office to 199, which is then in turn connected to the Go. Now, of course, I also have my hub that I'm using for demonstration purposes connected to the internet, and so we have the same situation that you would have when trying to debug the Go. When I need to debug the Go, I need to route my mail traffic and my router traffic and my tracking traffic to the Go and not to the internet. By default, it's just going to go over the internet, but of course we don't want that for this particular interest. So a couple things to know as far as IP addresses, since we're going to be having to configure static route tables in order to be able to execute this task, is the IP address for forecast.predictwin.com is, well, there's two servers. They're actually load balancers. These are the IP addresses. Tracking, AIS, and all of the services but mail. So that's tracking, polars, and AIS use forecast.predictwin.com, and mail uses mail.predictmail.com. So those are the IP addresses that are involved. So when using the Go Exec, you can go ahead and use these IP addresses. Now on the Go Exec, since forecast.predictwin.com is a cloud service, the firewall is configured to use that cloud service, and so it'll use one of these IP addresses. In other words, when you do a DNS query to ask what the IP address is of forecast.predictwin.com, the internet will return one of these two addresses. For the Go Exec, we can just firewall predict this entire host name, this cloud host name, and not worry about it. For the Go, we have a situation where we can't configure the firewall to use a domain or a host name. We have to use an IP address. So we can't really use one of these IP addresses because these two IP addresses are to a load balancer, and so when we try to connect to them, we get redirected to an IP address that we can't access because there are 4 forecast servers that are behind these two load balancers. And so for the Go, we automatically configure the software on the hub to return IP address 23.21.179.47, which is just one of the 4 forecast servers for PredictWind. And so this is hard-coded into the hub when you configure the hub for the Go 1. So if you're debugging the Go 1, you need to keep in mind that the IP address that you're going to be using for forecast.predictwin.com is this one. And when you're debugging the Go Exec, the IP addresses that you need to worry about are these two. The mail address is the same for both. All right, so let's go ahead and configure a hub for debugging or sending traffic through a Go one in this instance, although the same process also works for the Go Exec, that is remotely connected or it's connected directly, in my case remotely connected, but we want to force traffic through that particular device. So to do this, you're going to have to log in as superadmin. You have to log in as superadmin because we need to manipulate the routing tables in order to make this work. So you log in, and under network, static routes, you need to create some routes that will force traffic through the hosts that we want. Now, when you get done with a test, you want to remove these, otherwise the hub will not work as designed. But let's go ahead and take a look at this routing table as compared to compare it to our routing network. So in my situation, we know that we have an Iridium Go with IP address 192.168.0.1. The IP address for the Go and the Go Exec are the same unless a user has changed them. So you need to know what that is. If the user has changed it, then this is not going to work. But the default is 192.168.0.1. I don't see any reason for the user to change that unless there's a conflict with their local network. So for 99.9% of your installs, you can just assume this IP address. All right. Well, we know that the Go at 192.168.0, I'm just going to put that in here, 192.168.0.1, is connected to a hub, which is at 77.199, and we're at 98. So we want to create a route by hitting the add button that in my case allows me to get to 192.168.0.1 through 77.199. Now, in your testing, when you're remotely logged into a user, you're not going to really need this because you're going to have the Go directly connected to the device. And so in your routing tables, you just need to specify the IP addresses that you want to access and the host that connects to that particular IP address or to that service or where you want to route that particular traffic. And so your routing tables are going to be are going to be simple than mine. But you go ahead and hit the add. I'm just going to edit one of these so that you can see what this looks like. You specify the interface. All right, so the Go's are connected via the WAN interface. This is whether they're Wi-Fi tethered or whether they're Ethernet tethered. You're going to connect to the Go Exec to the WAN port or through the Wi-Fi bridge. And in the case of the Go, you're going to be a Wi-Fi bridge, but both of those are in the WAN section. So you'll just select that. Of course, you've got, okay, no, I'm lying to you. In the case of Ethernet, you would use WWAN. In the case of Wi-Fi, if you're Wi-Fi tethered, you're going to use the WWAN interface. WWAN stands for Wi-Fi WAN, Wi-Fi Wide Area Network. WAN stands for Wide Area Network. So if you're Ethernet connected, you're going to use the WAN. If you're Wi-Fi connected to the Go, you're going to use the WWAN. All right, so since I'm Ethernet connected through the local network to my hub, I'm going to select the WAN. The target that I'm trying to get to is 192.168.0.1, which is the IP address of the Go. And I'm going to go through my gateway, which is the hub on the other building that is connected to 192.168.77.199. So once I do that, I should have connectivity. Now, the hub has this nifty, so I can put that in there, do a save and apply. The hub has this nifty little tool under settings. All right, and we're going to use this a couple times so we can go to diagnostics. And we can, under ping, we can put in 192.168.0.1. And even though we're 2 hops away from that device, we should be able to ping it because we have a static route that gives us instructions on how to get there. And sure enough, look at that. We have 0% packet loss and we have IP connectivity to our Go. So that's one thing that you can test. And again, you would do this directly. You would not need to put in a static route in order to get to the Go if you remotely connected to a customer's hub that has the Go connected to it directly. So let's go back to network now. And let's go to my static routes. Now, this is a Go 1. And as mentioned before, for the Go 1, we need forecast.predictwin.com at IP address 23.21.179.247, and we also need mail. All right. So let's come here. Let's take a look at our static routing tables. I have a rule for 54.204.168.190, which is mail.predictmail.com. That's my mail server, and we're going to shoot it through the hub that is connected to the Go. In your particular instance, where the Go is directly connected to the hub, this IP address would be 192.168.0.1, right? Because you're directly connected to that. I'm not directly connected to the Go, so I have to specify the IP address of the thing that the Go is connected to. Again, we come here, we take a look. I'm going through the Ethernet port. You would be going through the WWAN port if you were Wi-Fi bridged. Here's my target IP address, and here's the gateway that will allow me to gain access to that server. All right, again, the same is true for forecast. You notice that since this is a Go and not a GO Exec, we're going to use this 23.21.179.247 address. If you're using a GO Exec, you would need to put in these two addresses here because you don't know which one the domain name services is going to return. So there it is, 23.21.179.47. It's going through again my 77.199 gateway. Hit save and apply. Now let's test this real quick. So we're going to go back to settings, and I'm going to go to diagnostics. And here, there's a trace route. If I put in the IP address, of mail.predictmail.com, I hit trace route. Look at that. It's being routed through 77.199 and then routed to the Go. Of course, it can't make it to the server because we're not connected to the internet. If we were connected to the internet, we would see hops through the Go back to this. In theory, I should be able to put in mail.predictmail.com. And again, if I had a trace route, that should also give me well, maybe not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The critical thing here to note is that we have the IP address. The DNS lookup is failed. Oh no, here we go. The DNS lookup did succeed. So yeah, here it is. It did find it, which is corrected. And it's sending it to the Iridium Go as we expected. All right, so there it is. It did a DNS lookup, used the local host table, and then tried to connect to it. So that's all cool. And again, if we put in forecast.predictwin.com, we'll get the same result. All right, so let's go test this. We can go to satellite. We can go to Go. And we can go to connection. And we can hit connect. And that should cause us to connect to the Go. So we're activating internet services. We would get an error if we didn't have the routing tables, because actually that's not necessarily true. In this particular instance, the routing tables aren't used because the Go satellite section directly communicates with that. But in a minute we'll see here when we do the mail that the mail will be transmitted over the Go. So let's just go ahead and wait for this to finish. We'll disconnect, and then we'll go and try the same connection. we'll try the same connection on the mail. So here we go. I'm disconnecting here. All right. So again, this test that I just did here, where I can connect to the Go, can be done for both the Go Exec and the Go without having to put in the static routes, because these applications know the IP address and can communicate directly with the devices. As a matter of fact, if I go to settings here for the Go, you'll notice that the IP address is set here. It's directly connected to your device, and so there's no need to have a routing table. All right, in my case, I do have to have a routing table because my Go is not directly connected. All right, so let's go to Mail. Let's go to Mail, and we have here under Settings, you notice that we have least cost routing selected for the transport. That, if I go to the Go Settings, you notice that there's a shortcut for that. Right here says Predict Mail via Iridium. That check mark really is nothing more than a shortcut to this setting right here. So we're setting to least cost routing. We can go to Connection, and we can do a mail session. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to connect, and then we'll watch the log files. Okay, so here we go. So we're connected to the Go. We're now setting up the firewall. Again, you notice the firewall is using host names. And so in the case of the Go, we're actually setting the IP addresses for the host that we're trying to access. And so there they are. I mean, there's the IP address of the mail server. So we're dialing. We've negotiated now the username and password for the PPP connection. We're now connected. Okay, we're now connected. So now we start our mail session. So we're contacting the mail server. This is all going through the Go now. And we've disconnected now. So it took a while because the Go is slow, as you guys all know. Oh, so here we go. So the again, unable to connect to server. Let's try this again. So we did establish a connection, but we were unable to establish a connection again. We probably lost signal there. So let's just go ahead and do this again. We'll start the dial. So we timed out on that. So we're dialing. Negotiating. Authenticated. Connected. Okay. Contacting the server. We connect to the server. We're now sending and we're now checking to see if there's any. We've logged in the user. There's no outbound mail. There's no inbound mail. We're done. And now we'll disconnect. So there's a full end-to-end test over in Iridium Go that is not connected directly to my hub, forcing the use of the Go even though we've got least cost routing. All right, so we've done that. We've successfully done that. You can do the same thing with tracking as well. When you're all done, you want to go to static routes. and you'll want to delete these routes. Otherwise, all of the user's email sessions and tracking sessions will be forced over their Iridium device. And that's all I've got for you. Until next time, this is Louis.